Good morning. Is this working? Great. Happy anniversary. I love the spontaneous response. That's great. You didn't have to say it twice. Today is a great day for many, many reasons. We've been blessed, not just today, but for 60 years. We're going to talk about that a little bit. You'll be glad to know that we're not going to be in here a very long time, but we thought about what would be fun for y'all, what would you like to know, what would be an appropriate way to celebrate this day to start it off. Did you know there's lots of activities today? I think Johnny's going to go over those later, and he'll end our time with us today. Well, what I want to talk about is first the history of Lipscomb and Pitts, a little bit about how we got started, because I realize that most of you really probably have no idea how that goes. I could talk for hours and hours and hours about our history as could Johnny, and we're proud of that. It's fun for us. There's great stories there. And if you have questions about that later, you can ask either one of us. But I do want to highlight just a few basic things. Then we're going to talk about some fun facts. We'll do that in just a little bit as well. You'll find it interesting about what was going on at the time that we began. The story of Lipscomb and Pitts, for all intents and purposes, really begins in about 1945. What world event ended 1945?
World War II.
That's right. And both of our fathers were involved in that. Mr. Pitts was served in the United States Army. My father was in the Navy Air Corps. And after the war, it was time for people to go to work. And there weren't many jobs. There was a need for a lot of people to work, but there was more people than there were jobs. My father came to Memphis, Tennessee from Middle Tennessee. He was raised above Nashville for one purpose. Liberty Mutual Insurance Company was hiring people to work. Dad knew nothing about insurance, nothing at all. But he needed a job, and he interviewed there, and he got the job. And also, what helped with that, Millington Naval Air Station was in existence. How many people knew that Memphis had a naval air station in Millington? Quite a few. That's good. But anyway, so he did his reserve work there. Mr. Pitts, on the other hand, did what many people have done, and he was younger than my father, about 4 years, so he went to school. Dad never graduated from college. He went to 8 colleges, courtesy of the Navy, but he never graduated. And he says that he never found one that was really up to his standards. But Mr. Pitts was raised in Memphis and chose Memphis State University, the hometown university, which had a good business school, and he went there to study to be a future businessman. While Dad was at Liberty Mutual, he was asked to go to Memphis State and to speak to one of the courses. It may have been the insurance class. And as he was talking about that, there was a student in the back of the room that was irritated about Liberty Mutual. Their family had had a bad experience with Liberty Mutual and kept berating the speaker as he was speaking that day. And that was the first introduction of Matt Lipscomb and John Pitts. That's how they met. They didn't see each other again for a long time. Dad was working at Liberty and had a head start on Mr. Pitts and had eventually became the #1 producer in the country on personal lines. Even personal lines, he sold 3 accounts a day, or 750 accounts a year, which was a record at that time. Mr. Pitts came to work at Liberty and immediately started making his path. And Dad, when he sold that much insurance, wanted to be a manager. They offered him that job, but at 1/3 the salary, because what he was making as a producer was worth 3 times what it would be as a manager. So he said, well, that's not for me. I want to start an insurance agency. He looked around. Who's the obvious candidate is the bright, young, up-and-coming John Pitts, who was the #2 producer at the time. So producers #1 and 2, over a cup of coffee at a Memphis restaurant, decided to begin Lipscomb and Pitts. And really, there was no other reason. Johnny and I are far, far closer than our dads ever were. Johnny and I are much more alike. You may look at us and say we're not alike at all, but we're far more alike than our dads were. And that's how they began Lipscomb and Pitts. They were smart enough to divide up the duties. Mr. Pitts had a skill for operations and for managing the clerical staff, and that's what he did. Dad had a responsibility for sales and the relationships with the insurance companies. And we both learned under our dads and kept those duties today. That's why I do what I do. That's why Johnny does what he does. The reason that Johnny and I are here is they had a rule that said if any of the siblings were going to come into the business, they had to get a degree, they had to study insurance, and they had to work at the agency, and they had to work for an insurance company before they came here. So Johnny's path was that he worked for INA, or Cigna. He went to University of Tennessee, and he studied insurance. I went to Memphis State. We did not think it was wise to go to the same universities. And I said that in reverse order. I know that you don't think this by looking at the two of us, but I'm actually a good bit older than John. So I got first choice, so I chose Memphis State, and he had to go to UT. So we both studied insurance. I worked for Safeco. He worked for Cigna. I started working at Lipscomb and Pitts in the 7th grade after school. We both had to work here after school in the summers at times. So I started work here in 1967. So that's a long time ago. And only 1 year since then have I not. I worked for Safeco for that 1 year. Other than that, I've worked here all that time, and Johnny has too. Lipscomb and Pitts was a personal lines agency for a long, long time. We owe Cigna, or INA at the time, was who got credit for moving us into commercial lines. They started something called Markedyne, which was the first of association type of insurance programs where you got a dividend at the end of the year. So we were the first Markedyne agent, the only one in Memphis. We were the first Market Pack, which was AIG's expression of that. We were the ARM agent, and the only one of the four that we weren't was FAMEX, which was Fireman's Fund. So part of our history is we had 3 of the 4 association programs. We were also the first agency, and I'll get to that a little later. So, but anyway, so we began to grow into commercial lines about that time. Our fathers were both leaders in the insurance industry. They both were Agent of the Year in Tennessee, Mr. Pitts numerous times, I think. They both were president of the Professional Insurance Agents of Tennessee. And again, I think Mr. Pitts was numerous times. They both were leaders in the industry on advisory boards and all those kinds of things. I don't want to take too much time to go into too much more, but I will say this. We grew and grew rapidly. You've heard me say that we've had 60 years of consecutive growth, 60 years of profits. There's never been a year that we didn't know profit and did not know growth. And that goes back to that time. We believe that the reason that we've been blessed in the way that we have, Mr. Pitts used to say, if you treat your employees like clients, they'll never leave you. We've always put the client first. We believe that. Dad always believed in putting the client first, but then you treat your employees like clients. And that's a great tandem. We believe in dividing things up. We believe in having 2 CEOs, just like ancient Rome. For 500 years, they had 2 consuls. They had 2 leaders, and it lasted for 500 years. That's a very unusual model. At Lipscomb Pitts, we believe in having 2 CEOs. In 1990, there was another big thing that happened at Lipscomb Pitts, is Johnny and I were given responsibility for the operations of the company. 2 years later, we bought it. Y'all may not know that, but we actually purchased the agency from our fathers. It was the most efficient and best way to do that. We did that in 1992. The building that you're in right now, we moved here in November of 1995. We've been growing ever since. Because of you, because of your contributions and what you have done, we are now 12 times the size we were when Johnny and I bought the agency in 1992. So many of you, if you were here in 1992, please raise your hand. Look around the room at how few people that is. But we give a round of applause to the people that raised their hands. Again, I could talk for hours. We don't have hours about the history of Lipscomb Pitts. Johnny could too. If you have questions about that, it would be a good time to rehearse that. Now we're going to get into this fun fact thing. We worked on this yesterday, and we're going to tag team this a little bit. When Lipscomb and Pitts was founded in 1954, we began on Cooper Street, and there was no air conditioning in the building. Now, occasionally we're here, there's no air conditioning. Imagine if that was, we did have heat, that was good. But we had no air conditioning. One thing that we did have in those days, we had windows, so it wasn't as bad as it sounds. There was no such thing as computer, praise God. There was no computers in Lipscomb and Pitts in those days. There were no copying machines, no such thing. We used carbon paper, and you had 3 sets. So you'd send one. Gene, you remember those days? So we would send it off to the various companies and that kind of thing, but no copy machines. There were no fax machines. We got a fax machine because one of our clients said, we want to fax you something. And we go, well? And they were selling them, so we bought one from them. That was great. There were no electronic typewriters. Everything was manual, and it was its own power. There was nothing you plugged in. There was nothing like that. Adding machines. You push buttons on a deal, and you pull a crank, and that would power it. That's what we did with the adding machines. All right, Johnny, your turn.
Okay, I don't know if any of you remember this, but I remember that when Lipscomb and Pitts was here back even in the 60s, there was no I-40. There was no interstate system in the 50s. I-240 and Sam Cooper up here didn't even exist. Who has been to a football game, a college football game, you're going to show yourself age-wise, at this stadium? It's E.H. Crump Stadium. A handful of us have. There wasn't the Mid-South the Liberty Bowl back then, there was only the E.H. Crump Stadium, and that's where Memphis State College played before it was even a university. This is a good one. You remember what Mile Island was? It was a sandbar. Truly, it was a sandbar, and that's all it was. It was a bunch of growth and willow trees and stuff coming up. Sears Crosstown was one of the largest employers in Memphis. The Sterritt Building, you know what the Sterritt Building is downtown Memphis? The Sterritt Building was the tallest building in the southeast U.S., some 30-something stories. Poplar Avenue, just over here, was 2 lanes when you get past Highland. All right, man.
There was no such thing as color TV. There was black and white TV, and I remember when our family didn't have one. There was no passenger jets. If you flew commercially in the United States, you got on a propeller plane. There were no jets except in the military, and that was it. The U.S. had not sent anything into space yet. There was no such thing as space travel. That didn't happen until 1957 when the Russians launched Sputnik.
And back then, Don's father was an agent back then too. That you had to choose between being either a mutual company rep or a stock company rep. Never both. Lipscomb & Fitts was the first one to ever actually do both. They own our policies in-house, issue the policies, and send a copy to the carrier. Get that? And it was done right. The average auto policy back then, I remember both of our dads telling us and saying, the average premium for an auto policy, it was you wrote a 6-month policy, was $15. And I'll never forget this story about Mr. Lipscomb calling on an elderly couple in Midtown. He had his business card in and it said, Matt Lipscomb, Lipscomb & Fitts owner. So he calls on the door, the suit on proper and everything, and the lady gets the card out, looks at it, just stares at Mr. Lipscomb, and she goes, Homer, we got the Mr. Lipscomb right here at the front door. They were big and bad with everything.
Since the time that we began, there have been 11 governors in the state of Tennessee. There have been 14 mayors in Memphis. And this may shock you, but rock and roll had not really been invented yet. That happened with Elvis right after we began.
Okay. Is this on blank? Thank you. Well, just a little bit of history. We want to keep this short, but I want to tell you a couple of things. Matt talked a lot about the history of our company and where we came from, our roots and everything. But the thing that I think really makes us stand out, there's 2 sides of a company. There's a hard edge. Every company has a hard edge. A hard edge is the financial side, the planning, the budgeting, all the numerical accounting and things like that. Not every company has a soft edge, though. A soft edge is what creates a culture in an organization. It's set from the leaders on down. It's those things that really give purpose behind why you come to work every day. It's what creates the camaraderie. It's what creates the urge to really serve your client, to run to the telephone after 3 rings, to respond immediately when somebody needs something, to have one of our own employees go to someone's house while it's burning and beat the fire department there. It's things like that that creates a culture in a company. Good companies have a really good hard edge. Great companies have a great soft edge. And I think our fathers have developed that soft edge, and we've maintained that over the years. So, I was interesting. I've got 3 things that I've got on me right now. And when I was a little boy, I remember going in my dad's room. He had a little jewelry box. And in that jewelry box, he had the same 3 things. And I would get him, play with them and stuff. One of them was his watch that I have here, and it's on my desk in my office. And it's an insurer's watch. And the irony of it is, this watch stopped clicking, or the battery died at 5 o'clock. I thought, I didn't. I know one thing, he didn't quit working at 5 o'clock. The other thing is a cross pin. Mr. Lipscomb had one too. This is a cross pin. I know many of you probably have one. And then I didn't even realize it till this morning, and I was putting them on. My dad had these cufflinks that have a P on them, and I remember seeing those cufflinks in his jewelry drawer when I was a little boy, and going, "What's the P for?" And I was so little, I didn't know. Sit down, son. Let me tell you. But he never really wore them because they never had the affordability to own a shirt that had French cuffs on them. They wore button downs. They were common men, really. They were common men with a common purpose, which is what made them so great and gives us the foundation for our company. Just this morning, I got this email. I thought it was so appropriate to read. It comes from Gene. Gene Shepard, by the way, sends us some of the greatest emails. Gene, thank you for this. I'm going to read it verbatim. This is what Gene Shepard says. Matt and Johnny, I've been working quite as long as...
Hang on.
I haven't been.
I have an announcement. Oh my gosh, the mayors are here.
Interrupted, so I'm going to pass the baton. I'll give it to Mayor A.C. Warren first.
Thank you, and good morning. Most of all, congratulations not merely to Johnny and Matt, but to the entire team. Give yourselves a round of applause. We are all a city and this whole region, state. Johnny, y'all play on a big platform, not merely in your line of business, but in making this state, this region, our city and county, a much better place. That's a part of your tradition, and I just want to keep it that way. Just to keep on doing such a great job in your line of business, but most importantly, keep on doing the good deeds in terms of making this a better place for everybody. Thank y'all, and God bless you, and another 100 and whatever years. With that, it's my pleasure to present to you the Mayor of Shelby County, Tennessee, the Honorable Mark Lustig.
I'd love for him to go first because he does such an eloquent introduction. I appreciate that. Thank you, Mayor, and certainly to you all. Thank you for this opportunity. This is a great surprise, isn't it, Matt? We ran into Matt a while ago. He's grabbed a bottle of water and said, well, there goes a surprise. But nevertheless, Johnny, to you and Matt, congratulations, 60 years. And not only being pioneers in the insurance industry, but I think more importantly, what you all have given back to the community in so many ways. And I know I've reached out to both of you at various times for assistance that has nothing to do with insurance. And you all have been such great contributors throughout the community. And this is just really a very small token of appreciation from all of the citizens of Shelby County for what the entire Lipscomb Pitt family does. And that's all of you. All of your members of the family. And Mayor Wharton and I, we have limited budgets and limited resources and limited authority, but when we can reach out to friends, we are limitless. And that's nice to have partners like Lipscomb and Pitts and you all helping us make our jobs a little bit easier. Now, do we give out our special little gifts now? Mayor, I've got a proclamation. What do you got? I think those are my gifts too. What else you got? Mayor, why don't you give them the... Since Mayor Wharton was also a county mayor, I'm going to let him kind of share this responsibility with you. But
we have a proclamation somewhere. Look, this is the way it goes. Since people in the city pay county taxes too.
And I'm sure that Mayor Wharton also has a proclamation, but I'm going to let him share this proclamation with me. But we do have a proclamation, and I'm not going to read all this proclamation. You all have heard proclamations, and you know all the words that go with it, the whereases and the therefores. But just know, Johnny and Matt, that this represents the sentiments of all Shelby Countyans. Memphians, Arlingtonians. Anybody here from Arlington? Any Arlingtonians? We've got some Arlingtonians here. But certainly all the citizens, 920,000 citizens of Shelby County. Mayor Wharton and I present you all this proclamation establishing Lipscomb and Pitts Day 2014, and encourage all the citizens of Shelby County to take interest and support the legacy of Lipscomb Pitts Insurance, LLC, the legacy that's been created throughout Memphis and Shelby County, affixed with the seal of Shelby County, signed by Mark Luttrell, as well as endorsed by A.C. Wharton. So we present this certificate to you as well. Let's get all the cameras up here. To our honorees.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for both mayors. Thank you so much for being here. It was a surprise, at least until I walked in to get the bottle of water. But we appreciate everything that y'all have done to make this city great and this county great and support us in the way as just as you have reached out to us, there's been times we have reached out to you. And so that's a reciprocal agreement that y'all have always honored. We appreciate everything that you do. And so I'd like to ask everybody here to give a round of applause to the tremendous support that we get from our
well, and Phil Trinieri. Phil, thank you for coming today. Phil is the president of the Chamber of Commerce in Memphis and a good friend of mine. Dave Lenore over here with the Shelby County Trustee's Office. Both gentlemen are entrepreneurs in their new positions, and thank you for the service that you give us all. So finally, as I wrap up, as I was getting ready to, it really is a good conclusion. This is from Gene Shepard. I haven't been working quite as long as 60 years, only 55 years. But one of the first names I heard mentioned when I started at Liberty Mutual in 1959 was Lipscomb and Pitts Insurance. What a great place to work. I have worked for a large insurance company, a national insurance agency, a large agency, and a small agency. All of them. And without a doubt, this is the very best place to work. What a wonderful group of people to work with on a day-to-day basis. We are truly blessed, and we are truly blessed. Thank you very much. Let's conclude. Okay, one more thing.
One other thing. We have also received a proclamation from the Governor of Tennessee also declaring today as Lipscomb and Pitts Day in the state of Tennessee. And I will present that to Matt and Johnny now.
Where's President Obama? I got everybody else here. So, is there anything else? Oh, one more. Here we go. Here we go. Oh, that's not Obama, is it?
This is a letter from Senator Lamar Alexander just congratulating you two for all the things that you've done for the community and for insurance industry as well.
Thank you. I think the best thing our two dads got was "atta boy" from their mamas back in but if that's it, why don't we sing "Happy Birthday, Lipscomb and Pitts"? Wayne, you want to come here and lead us? We'll all sing it together. Ready? Happy birthday to